The resignation letter sat on his desk like a death sentence. Kara Dennison had written it at 3 a.m., her hands shaking so violently she'd rewritten it 4 times before the words stopped blurring. 24 hours later, she was 300 miles away, holed up in a motel that smelled like stale cigarettes and regret, waiting for the crushing weight in her chest to ease. It didn't. Because even now, even here, she could still feel him, that phantom pull that had haunted her for 2 years. The one that made her skin prickle when he entered a room. The one that made her wolfless, powerless human heart race every time his cold silver eyes found hers across the conference table. Kalen Amnell didn't just command a room. He consumed it. And she'd been stupid enough to think that meant something. The burn phone on the nightstand buzzed. Once. Twice. Then went silent. Kara stared at it, her pulse hammering in her throat. She'd ditched her real phone in a gas station trash can 2 states back, but paranoia clawed at her anyway. He wouldn't come after you. You're nothing to him. You heard the truth. The memory sliced through her like silver through flesh. The human stays until the Westridge pack agrees to the merger, Council Elder Thorne had said, his voice echoing through the closed boardroom door. After that, she's expendable. A human liaison has no place in pack hierarchy once the political advantages are secured. And Kalen, the alpha who ruled the Northern Territories with an iron will and a reputation that made rival packs bleed just hearing his name, had said nothing. Not one word in her defense. Because she'd always been the pawn, never the player. Kara pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself not to cry again. She'd cried enough. 2 years of late nights, of proving herself in a world that saw her as prey, of ignoring the way her traitorous body responded every time Kalen's voice dropped to that low, commanding rumble that made her knees weak. A knock shattered the silence. 3 deliberate strikes against cheap wood. Kara froze, every nerve ending screaming danger. I know you're in there, Kara. The voice slid through the door like smoke and steel, controlled, patient, and utterly lethal. Her blood turned to ice. No, he couldn't have found her. Not this fast. Not when she'd been so careful. Open the door. Kalen's tone didn't rise, didn't waver. It didn't need to. The command vibrated through her bones anyway, ancient and absolute. Or I'll open it myself. Kara's hand moved to the door handle before her brain caught up. Some primal part of her, the part that had always responded to him, even when logic screamed to run, obeyed. The door swung open. Kalen Amnell stood in the flickering motel light like a king surveying conquered territory. 6'4" of coiled predator, dressed in black despite the summer heat, his silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Not fully shifted, but close enough that she could see the wolf prowling just beneath his skin. He looked at her the way an alpha looks at prey that's forgotten its place. But there was something else there too. Something raw and bleeding that made her chest constrict. You ran, he said softly. Too softly. The kind of soft that preceded violence. From me. I quit, Kara corrected, hating how her voice shook. There's a difference. Is there? He stepped forward, and she stepped back on instinct. The door clicked shut behind him, and suddenly the small motel room felt suffocating. He filled every inch of space, his presence crushing the air from her lungs. I accepted your resignation, Kalen continued, his gaze never leaving hers. Each word was precise, controlled, but his hands trembled at his sides. I understood your need to leave the position. He moved closer. Kara's back hit the wall. But I did not. His voice dropped to a growl that raised every hair on her body. Except you walking away from me. There is no me, Kara whispered, even as her traitorous heart hammered against her ribs. I was just. Say it. The command cracked through the room like a whip. Say what you think you were. The words clawed up her throat, bitter and true. Leverage. Bait. A human placeholder until you secured your political alliance. Her voice broke. I heard the council meeting, Kaylin. I heard what Elder Thorne said. And I heard your silence. Something flickered across his face, something that looked like pain, if alphas were capable of such weakness. What you heard, he said carefully, was a lie. I heard the truth. You heard what they needed to hear. He closed the final distance between them, and Kara felt the heat radiating off him like a furnace. His scent wrapped around her pine and smoke, and something wild that made her dizzy. Because if they knew what you really were to me, Kara, you'd already be dead. Her breath caught. What are you talking about? Kaylin's jaw clenched, his control fraying at the edges. When he spoke again, his voice was barely human. You're my mate. The world tilted sideways. That's not. Kara shook her head violently. I'm human. Humans don't have mates. We don't feel the bond, we can't. No. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along her jaw with a gentleness that contradicted everything she knew about him. But I do. I have felt it since the moment you walked into my office 2 years ago and refused to lower your eyes. Since the first time you challenged my orders in front of the entire pack and made my wolf howl with pride instead of rage. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Kara's entire body ignited. Every territorial instinct. Every possessive urge. Every sleepless night where I stood outside your apartment to make sure you were safe, even though it made me look like a stalker and a fool. His laugh was bitter, broken. I knew. And I have been trying to protect you from the consequences ever since. By letting them call me expendable? The accusation came out sharp, defensive. By making them believe you meant nothing. Kaylin's eyes blazed. The council wants me to mate with Alpha Nikki from the Westridge Pack, a political alliance that would unite 2 territories and make me untouchable. If they knew I'd already chosen you, a human with no pack, no power, no protection. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Kara's mind reeled. The meeting was theater. A performance for council members who've been circling for months, waiting for weakness. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up to his. I was buying time to find another way. A way to keep you safe while I dismantled their plans piece by piece. Then why didn't you tell me? The question came out raw, broken. Because you're human. The word sounded like an apology. You can't feel the bond that tells me you're mine. All you'd hear is an alpha claiming ownership of someone weaker. I needed you to choose me, Kara. Not because instinct demanded it, but because you wanted. You, she breathed. The confession hung between them like a living thing. Kaylin's control shattered. He kissed her like a man dying of thirst, his mouth claiming hers with a desperate hunger that had been building for 2 years. Kara gasped against his lips, and he swallowed the sound, one hand fisting in her hair while the other locked around her waist, pulling her flush against him. This wasn't gentle. This wasn't human. This was an alpha finally unleashing everything he'd kept caged, and it was devastating. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His eyes had gone full wolf, glowing silver in the dim light. You broke something when you left, he rasped against her mouth. Something I can't fix by logic or control. My wolf doesn't understand resignation letters or professional boundaries. It only knows you're gone, and it's been 3 days of hell trying to keep him from tearing through the city to find you. Kara's hands had somehow found their way to his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palms. Kaylin, I'm not here to drag you back to a job. His forehead pressed against hers. I'm here because losing you is the one thing I will not survive. So tell me, Kara Dennison. Tell me if I'm too late. Tell me if what you feel for me was just professional admiration for a boss, and I'll walk away. His voice dropped to a broken whisper. Lie to me if you have to. Tell me you feel nothing, and I'll let you go. She should. God, she should lie. Should protect herself from the insanity of loving a werewolf alpha who could never truly be hers, not when politics and pack law and ancient hierarchies stood between them. But when she looked into those silver eyes and saw the desperate, feral hope there. "I can't," Kara whispered. "Can't what?" "Can't tell you, I feel nothing." Her voice broke. "Because I've been in love with you since you stayed up with me through my first territorial negotiation, correcting my pronunciation of pack titles at 2 a.m. while drinking terrible coffee. Since you stood between me and that rogue wolf in Seattle without hesitation. Since you looked at me like I mattered, even when I was just human in a world of monsters." The sound that came from Kaylin's chest was pure wolf, a rumble of triumph and possession that vibrated through her entire body. "Then we fight," he said. "Together. The council, the politics, the entire pack hierarchy if necessary." His hands framed her face like she was something precious, breakable. "Because you were never my pawn, Kara. You were always my endgame." "They'll destroy you," she protested weakly. "Choosing me means losing everything. Losing you means I've already lost everything that matters." The certainty in his voice stole her breath. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Inside, an alpha who ruled packs with an iron will held a human woman like she was the only thing anchoring him to sanity. And Kara realized with dawning, terrifying clarity that her resignation had never been the end of anything. It had been the beginning of a war that would reshape everything they knew. Because Kaylin Amnell didn't just want her back as an employee. He wanted her as his mate, his equal, his choice. And he was willing to burn his entire world down to prove it. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. If you're already hooked by Kara and Kaylin's story, please hit that subscribe button and tell us, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's dive deeper into this emotional journey. The motel room fell silent except for their ragged breathing. Kara's mind spun, trying to reconcile the man before her with the cold, untouchable alpha she'd worked for. Kaylin Amnell, the wolf who'd built an empire through ruthless strategy and iron control, was looking at her like she held his entire world in her trembling hands. "I need you to understand something," Kaylin said, his voice still rough with barely restrained wolf. He stepped back, giving her space even though it clearly cost him. "Before you decide if this is what you want. Before you agree to stand beside me in what's coming." Kara wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold without his heat. "What?" "Who I really am. What I've done." His jaw clenched. "The monster you'd be binding yourself to. You're not a monster. I've killed Kara." The confession was flat factual. 17 wolves who challenged my authority. 3 humans who tried to expose our kind. And 1 alpha who thought claiming you as his own would be an acceptable power play at the Vancouver summit. Her breath caught. She remembered Vancouver. Remembered the way Alpha Darkenral from the Eastern Territories had cornered her in the hallway, his hand on her arm, his breath reeking of whiskey and entitlement. She'd come back to the conference room shaking, and Kaylin had taken one look at her face before excusing himself. Darkenral's pack had found him 3 days later, his throat torn out. "That was you," she whispered. "That was me protecting what's mine before I had the right to call you that." Kaylin's eyes glowed in the darkness. "My wolf doesn't negotiate, doesn't compromise. When it comes to you, it doesn't even think, it just acts. And I won't apologize for it." Kara should be terrified. Should run screaming from a man who'd just admitted to murder with the same tone someone might use to discuss quarterly reports. Instead, she found herself asking, what else? Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or respect. "What else what? What else do I need to know about you? The real you, not the alpha everyone fears." She moved closer, drawn by that same inexplicable pull that had always existed between them. "You know everything about me. My coffee order. My favorite route to work. That I reorganize files when I'm anxious, and that I hate thunderstorms because my father died in one." Kaylin's throat worked. You hate thunderstorms because you were 9 years old when the lightning struck his car. You watched from your bedroom window, screaming for your mother to help him, but it was already too late. And now every storm makes you feel 9 years old and helpless again. The accuracy of it stole her breath. How? Because I've spent 2 years learning everything about you that makes you you. He reached out, hesitated, then let his hand drop. I know you take 2 sugars in your morning coffee, but 3 in the afternoon because you need the extra boost. I know you're fluent in 4 languages, but you still count in English when you're stressed. I know you volunteer at the human shelter on weekends because you understand what it's like to feel powerless in a world that doesn't see you. Kara's eyes burned. No one had ever paid that much attention to her. No one had ever cared enough to notice the small things that made her human. I know you're stronger than you believe, Kalen continued, his voice softening. That you've survived in a wolf's world through sheer determination and brilliance. That you've negotiated treaties that saved lives, mediated disputes that would have led to war, and earned respect from packs who've never respected humans before. That was my job. That was you being extraordinary in a world designed to make you feel ordinary. He stepped closer, and this time she didn't retreat. And I've watched you do it while pretending I didn't want to fall to my knees every time you walked into a room. The confession hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Your turn, Kara said quietly. Tell me something real. Something you've never told anyone else. Kalen was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, the words sounded dragged from somewhere deep and protected. I was 7 when I killed my first wolf. Kara's stomach dropped. My father was alpha before me. Cruel. Vicious. The kind of leader who ruled through fear and violence. Kalen's voice was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. My mother was human. A treaty bride from a neighboring territory, meant to secure an alliance that lasted exactly 3 years before my father grew bored with her. Kalen. He beat her regularly. In front of the pack. To prove that even an alpha's mate could be broken if she was human. His hands clenched into fists. I was too young to challenge him. Too weak. But I wasn't too weak to put silver in his whiskey the night he decided she'd outlived her usefulness. The confession settled over the room like fresh snow, cold and suffocating. My mother died anyway, Kalen continued. Heartbreak, the pack healer said. As if losing the mate bond to a monster she'd been forced to marry had shattered something essential inside her. I became alpha at 7 years old, and I swore I would never be like him. Never force a bond. Never claim someone who couldn't choose me freely. Understanding crashed through Kara. That's why you never told me. Why you've been waiting. I will not be my father. The words came out fierce, absolute. I will not trap you in a bond you can't feel, can't escape. Even if it kills me to walk away, I will not force this. Kara's heart cracked open. Here was the truth beneath the ice, an alpha who'd spent his entire life fighting against the violence he'd been born into. Who'd built control out of childhood trauma. Who'd protected her by staying silent, even when it cost him everything. Who else knows, she asked. About your mother. About what you did. Zedekus. Kalen's expression shifted slightly. My second. The only wolf who's been with me since the beginning. Kara knew Zed, a grizzled wolf with kind eyes and a sharp tongue who'd always treated her with surprising gentleness. He knows about us? About the mate bond. Zed knows everything. It's his curse. A ghost of a smile touched Kalen's lips. He's been telling me for 2 years that I'm an idiot for not claiming you properly. That I'm overthinking. That you're stronger than I give you credit for. Smart wolf, Kara murmured. Insufferable wolf, Kalen corrected. But loyal. When the council started circling, pushing for the alliance with Westridge Pack, Zed's the one who helped me plant the false information. Who made sure the meeting you overheard happened exactly as planned. Kara's mind raced. You wanted me to hear that conversation. I needed you safe. The council was getting aggressive, and I couldn't risk them discovering the truth about what you mean to me. Kaylin's jaw tightened. I thought if you believed you were just political leverage, you'd be more careful. More guarded. I thought I was protecting you. Instead, I ran. Instead, you broke my wolf's heart and made me realize that protecting you means nothing if I lose you in the process. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his palm cupped her cheek. I'm done with strategies. Done with lies. I want you, Kara Dennison. Not as my employee. Not as political leverage. As my mate. My equal. My choice. Kara leaned into his touch, feeling the calluses on his palm from years of fighting. The council won't accept it. Alpha Nikki won't accept it. You'll have to fight the entire political structure. Then I'll fight. You could lose everything. Your territory. Your pack. Your life. I've already lost everything that matters. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. These past 3 days without you have been hell. My wolf tearing at my skin, demanding I find you. Track you. Claim you. I've barely slept. Barely eaten. Zed had to physically restrain me twice to keep me from shifting and hunting you down like prey. The admission should have frightened her. Instead, it sent a dark thrill through her chest. What happens now? Kara whispered. Now. Kaylin's eyes blazed silver. Now you tell me if you're willing to stand with me. Not as my subordinate. Not as someone I'm protecting. As my partner. My mate. Someone who'll challenge me, fight beside me, and refuse to back down even when I'm being an arrogant ass. Despite everything, Kara laughed. You're always an arrogant ass. Exactly why I need you. His forehead pressed against hers. You're the only one who calls me on it. The only one who sees past the alpha to the man underneath. The damaged, broken man who's been in love with you since you corrected my grammar in front of the entire pack council and didn't even flinch when I growled at you. Kara remembered that meeting. Remembered the way his eyes had flashed gold, the tension that had rippled through the room. She'd been terrified but refused to show it, meeting his gaze with steady determination. She'd expected punishment. Instead, he'd smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face, and said, "You're absolutely right. My apologies." The pack had been speechless. Alphas didn't apologize. Especially not to humans. But Kaylin had. Because even then, she'd mattered. I'm scared, Kara admitted. Of what's coming. Of what choosing you means. I'm terrified, Kaylin countered. Of failing you. Of not being enough. Of my wolf losing control and doing something that drives you away forever. His hands framed her face. But I'd rather face that fear with you than spend another day pretending I don't need you like air. Outside, the storm broke. Rain hammered against the motel windows, thunder rolling across the sky in waves that made Kara flinch. Kaylin noticed immediately. Without a word, he pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head while the other wrapped around her waist. His heartbeat thrummed against her ear, steady, strong, alive. I've got you, he murmured into her hair. The storm can't touch you here. Kara breathed in his scent, pine and smoke and something wild, and felt the terror ease. For the first time since her father's death, a thunderstorm didn't make her feel helpless. Because she wasn't alone anymore. Okay, she whispered against his chest. Kaylin went very still. Okay, I'm with you. Kara pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I choose you, Kaylin Amnell. The alpha. The man. The wolf. All of it. The sound that came from his throat was pure triumph, a wolf's howl trapped in a human chest. He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. A claiming. A promise. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were glowing pure silver. Then we go back, he said. Together. And we show the council exactly what happens when they try to manipulate an alpha's mate. Kara's stomach twisted with nerves, but she nodded. What's the plan? The plan? Kalen's smile was all wolf, dangerous and beautiful. We burn their world down and build a new one from the ashes. They drove back through the night in Kalen's black SUV, the city lights bleeding into dawn as they crossed the territorial border. Kara watched the landscape shift from anonymous highway to familiar streets, her anxiety building with every mile. She was returning to a world that had never truly accepted her. Only now, she wasn't coming back as the invisible human liaison who kept her head down and her opinions careful. She was coming back as an alpha's mate. The thought terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. "You're thinking too loud," Kalen said, his hand finding hers across the center console. The casual intimacy of the gesture still felt surreal. "I'm thinking about what happens when we walk through those doors," Kara admitted. "The pack is going to lose their minds. The council will call for your head. And Alpha Nikki will learn that political alliances mean nothing when it comes to the mate bond." Kalen's joy tightened. "Let me worry about Nikki." But Kara couldn't stop worrying. She'd met Alpha Nikki of the Westridge Pack exactly once, at a summit 6 months ago. The female alpha had been stunning, all predatory grace and barely contained power, with ice-blue eyes that had assessed Kara like a threat to be eliminated. Which, apparently, she was. "Does she know?" Kara asked. That we're. "No one knows. Except Zed." Kalen's thumb traced circles on her palm, the gesture soothing despite the tension radiating from him. "Which means when we arrive, we control the narrative. We tell them together, on our terms." The SUV pulled up to the Northern Territories pack house just as the sun broke over the horizon. The sprawling compound looked like a fortress, all stone and steel and territorial wards that hummed with protective magic. Kara had always found it intimidating. Now it felt like a battleground. Zedekus was waiting on the front steps. The older wolf looked like he hadn't slept in days, his silver-streaked hair disheveled and his expression somewhere between relief and exasperation. When Kalen parked and stepped out, Zed's shoulders sagged. 3 days, Zed said by way of greeting. 3 days of you being a feral nightmare while I held this pack together and lied to the council about your whereabouts. I appreciate your service, Kalen said dryly. You can appreciate it by never doing that again. Zed's gaze shifted to Kara as she emerged from the passenger side. His expression softened immediately. Welcome back, Kara. Though I suspect your return is about to make my life significantly more complicated. That seems to be my specialty, Kara managed, trying for lightness despite her racing heart. Zed's eyes flicked between them, taking in their proximity, the way Kalen's hand hovered protectively near her lower back. Understanding dawned across his weathered face. You told her, he said quietly. I told her everything, Kalen confirmed. About damn time. Zed scrubbed a hand over his face. Though your timing could use work. The council is inside. They arrived an hour ago, demanding to know why you've been ignoring their summons. And Alpha Nikki is also inside, a new voice cut in, sharp and cold as winter ice. Kara's stomach dropped. Alpha Nikki stepped out of the pack house entrance like a queen claiming her throne. She was even more intimidating than Kara remembered, tall and powerfully built, with white blonde hair braided back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Her ice-blue eyes locked onto Kalen with proprietary interest before sliding to Kara with open contempt. Kalen, Nikki purred, moving down the steps with predatory grace. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me. Nikki. Kalen's tone was carefully neutral, but Kara felt him tense. I wasn't expecting you until next week. The council moved up our meeting. Something about finalizing the merger terms before the summer solstice. Nikki's gaze flicked to Kara again, dismissive. I see you've returned with your assistant. The deliberate insult landed like a slap. Liaison, Kara corrected automatically, then immediately regretted it when Nikki's smile sharpened. Of course. How could I forget? Nikki turned her full attention to Kaylin, effectively dismissing Kara's existence. We have much to discuss. The Westridge Pack elders are eager to formalize our alliance, and there are certain personal matters that require your attention. The implication was clear. Their mating bond. The political marriage that would unite two powerful territories. Kaylin's hand found the small of Kara's back, a gesture so subtle most wouldn't notice. But Nikki's eyes tracked the movement like a wolf spotting prey. Those plans have changed, Kaylin said, his voice dropping into alpha command. Not loud, but absolute. Nikki's smile froze. Changed. I won't be accepting the Westridge Alliance. Not now. Not ever. The words hit like a detonation. Zed closed his eyes briefly as if praying for patience. Nikki's expression went from shock to fury in the span of a heartbeat. You're refusing? Her voice climbed, power crackling around her like lightning. We had an agreement, Kaylin. Our packs have been negotiating this merger for months. An agreement I never personally committed to, Kaylin interrupted. The council pushed for this alliance. I tolerated their schemes. But I made no promises. You tolerated. Nikki's hands clenched into fists. Do you have any idea what this refusal will cost you? The Westridge Pack controls the southern borders. Without our alliance, your territory is vulnerable too. I'm aware of the strategic implications. Then why? Nikki's gaze snapped back to Kara, and understanding crashed across her face like a tidal wave. No, you cannot be serious. The air pressure in the courtyard shifted. Several pack members had emerged from the building, drawn by the commotion. Kara felt their stares like physical weight, curious, confused, hostile. I have never been more serious about anything in my life, Kaylin said, and there was something raw and dangerous in his tone that made Kara's breath catch. She's human, Nikki spat, all pretense of civility evaporating. Weak. Powerless. She can't even feel the mate bond. Enough. The word cracked through the courtyard like a whip, and every wolf present flinched. Kaylin's eyes blazed pure gold, his alpha power rolling out in waves that made the air shimmer. You will not speak of my mate that way. You will not question my choice. And you will leave my territory before I forget the laws of hospitality and remove you myself. The silence that followed was deafening. Mate. He'd said it out loud, in front of witnesses, with the full weight of alpha command behind it. There was no taking it back now. Nikki looked like she'd been struck. Your mate? My mate, Kaylin repeated, his hand sliding around Kara's waist and pulling her against his side. The gesture was possessive, protective, and utterly unmistakable. Chosen. Claimed. Mine. Kara's heart hammered so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. She forced herself to stand tall, to meet Nikki's murderous glare without flinching. This is insanity, Nikki breathed. The council will never accept. The council doesn't get a vote in who I claim as mate. Kaylin's voice dropped to a growl. And any wolf who tries to challenge that decision will answer to me directly. You'll start a war, Nikki warned. The Westridge Pack has allies. Powerful allies who won't tolerate this insult. Then they can bring their challenge to my door. Kaylin's smile was all teeth. I welcome it. For a long moment, the two alphas stared at each other, predators calculating odds, measuring threats. Then Nikki's gaze slid to Kara, and something cruel and calculating entered her expression. She won't survive what's coming, Nikki said softly. You know that, don't you? The moment you make this official, she becomes a target. Every pack with a grudge against you, every alpha who wants your territory, every wolf who sees humans as prey, they'll all come for her. And you can't protect her forever. The words hit their mark. Kara felt Kaylin's body go rigid beside her, his control fraying at the edges. I survived 2 years in your world, Kara heard herself say, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. I negotiated treaties with wolves who wanted me dead. I mediated conflicts between alphas who saw humans as food. I earned my place here through intelligence and determination, not because I was born with claws and fangs. Nikki's eyes narrowed. Brave words from someone who'll be torn apart the first time an enemy pack decides she's easier prey than her mate. Let them try. Kaylin's voice had gone deadly quiet. Let any wolf lay one claw on her, and I will show them exactly why the Northern Territories have remained unconquered for 3 generations. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Nikki smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You've made your choice then, and destroyed everything in the process. She turned on her heel, heading for the sleek black car waiting at the edge of the courtyard. The council will hear about this within the hour. I hope she's worth losing your kingdom, Kaylin. She was gone before he could respond, her departure leaving a wake of stunned silence. The pack members who'd gathered whispered frantically among themselves. Kara caught fragments of their conversations, shock, disbelief, anger, curiosity. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like prey caught in a spotlight. Then Zed stepped forward, breaking the tension. Well, he said conversationally, that went better than expected. Kaylin shot him an incredulous look. Better. She didn't challenge you directly, and no one died. In my book, that's a victory. Zed's expression sobered. But Nikki's right about one thing. The council will lose their minds when they hear about this. You need to get ahead of it. I know. Kaylin's arm tightened around Kara's waist. Call an emergency pack meeting. Everyone. Tonight. Tonight? Zed's eyebrows rose. You're sure? The longer we wait, the more time our enemies have to organize. Kaylin's jaw set. If I'm going to face challenges, I want to do it on my terms, in front of my pack, with Kara beside me. Zed studied them both for a long moment, then nodded. I'll make the arrangements. He paused, then added quietly, for what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Kara's been good for you. Good for the pack, whether they realize it or not. Thank you, old friend. Zed clasped Kaylin's shoulder briefly, then headed back into the pack house, already pulling out his phone to make calls. Which left Kara and Kaylin alone in the courtyard, surrounded by the weight of what they'd just done. Are you okay? Kaylin asked, turning to face her fully. Kara let out a shaky breath. I just watched you blow up a political alliance and declare me your mate in front of half your pack. I'm processing. Regrets? Terror, she corrected. But no regrets. Something in his expression softened. Nikki was right about one thing. This makes you a target. Every enemy I've made, every wolf who wants my territory, they'll see you as my weakness now. Then we make sure I'm not a weakness. Kara forced steel into her voice. I'm not some fragile thing that needs to be locked away for protection. If I'm going to be your mate, I need to be your partner. That means learning to defend myself. Really defend myself. Kaylin's eyes gleamed with something that looked like pride. You want combat training? I want to survive what's coming. Whatever that takes. It won't be easy. The training will be brutal and, even then, I know the odds. Kara cut him off. I know what I'm up against. But I didn't fall in love with you to hide in the shadows while you fight my battles. So either teach me how to be strong enough to stand beside you or what? Kaylin challenged, a hint of amusement in his tone. Or I'll find someone who will. The growl that rumbled from his chest was pure possessive wolf. No one else touches you. Not for training. Not for anything. Then I guess you're stuck with me as a student. I can live with that. Kaylin pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Though I should warn you, I'm a terrible teacher. Demanding. Impatient. Possibly sadistic. Good thing I'm a terrible student, Kara countered. Stubborn. Argumentative. Possibly insane for choosing a werewolf alpha over a normal life. His laugh was low and genuine. Possibly. They stood there for a moment, wrapped in each other while the morning sun climbed higher and the pack buzzed with gossip inside. Kara knew this peace wouldn't last. Tonight's meeting would be brutal. The council's response would be worse. And somewhere out there, enemies were already planning how to exploit this new weakness. But right now, in this moment, she had everything she needed. Whatever happens tonight, Kaylin said quietly, whatever challenges come, I want you to know that choosing you is the easiest decision I've ever made. Kara's throat tightened. Even if it costs you everything? You are everything. He kissed her softly, reverently. The rest is just politics. A door slammed somewhere inside the pack house, followed by raised voices. Reality was already intruding. Come on, Kaylin said, taking her hand. We have 6 hours before the meeting. Let's use them to prepare for war. As they walked toward the entrance together, Kara felt the weight of countless eyes watching from windows and doorways. The pack was measuring her, judging her, wondering what their alpha saw in a powerless human. She lifted her chin and met their stares without flinching. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. She'd spent 2 years proving herself in a world that wanted her to fail. She could do it again. Only this time, she wasn't fighting alone. This time, she had an alpha who would burn the world down to keep her safe. And together, they were going to show the supernatural world exactly what happened when you underestimated the power of a bond that chose love over law. The real war was just beginning. The 6 hours before the emergency pack meeting passed in a blur of preparation and barely controlled chaos. Kaylin had taken Kara to his private quarters, a sprawling suite at the top of the pack house that she'd never been invited to before. The space was surprisingly sparse for an alpha, dark furniture, minimal decoration, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the territory. The only personal touches were books, hundreds of them, lining every available wall. You read, Kara said, surprised. You thought I spent all my time growling and intimidating people? Kaylin's lips quirked. I have to do something during the hours I'm not sleeping because my wolf is too busy obsessing over my human liaison. The casual admission made her heart skip. What do you read? History. Strategy. Philosophy. He gestured to a shelf near the window. And terrible romance novels that Zed keeps leaving around as a joke. Kara laughed, and for a moment, the tension eased. But it couldn't last. We need to talk about tonight, Kaylin said, his expression sobering. He guided her to the leather couch, sitting close enough that their knees touched. The pack meeting won't be easy. There will be challenges. Questions. Possibly outright hostility. From who? Denna, for one. Kaylin's jaw tightened. My third. She's been advocating for the Westridge Alliance since the beginning. Sees it as strategic necessity. Kara had met Denna exactly 3 times, and each encounter had left her feeling like she'd been assessed and found wanting. The female wolf was all sharp edges and colder ambition, beautiful in a dangerous way, with dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'll challenge your choice, Kara said. It wasn't a question. She'll challenge you directly, Kaylin corrected. Try to prove you're unfit to be an alpha's mate. It's her right as third to question decisions that affect pack safety. What kind of challenge? Could be verbal. Could be physical. At Kara's sharp inhale, he added quickly, I won't let it go that far. But you need to be prepared for her to push. To test your resolve. What do I say? The truth. Kaylin's hand found hers. That you're strong enough to stand beside me. That you've earned your place here through your own merit. That you're not afraid of what's coming. Even though I am afraid? Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to act despite it. His thumb traced patterns on her palm. You've been doing that since the day you walked into my office and demanded better terms for the human refugees. You were terrified, I could smell it, but you didn't back down. Kara remembered that meeting. Her first week on the job, faced with an alpha whose reputation made grown wolves tremble. She'd been shaking so badly she'd had to grip the edge of his desk to keep her hands steady. But she'd gotten those refugees their protections. Had negotiated safe passage through 3-pack territories. Because being afraid didn't mean being helpless. There's something else, Kalen continued, his expression darkening. Rawl will be there. Rawl. The name was unfamiliar. Darken Rawl's younger brother. He arrived this morning, demanding an audience. Kalen's eyes flashed gold. Apparently, he's taken over the Eastern Territories after his brother's convenient death. And he's been asking pointed questions about what happened in Vancouver. Ice slid down Kara's spine. He knows you killed Darken. He suspects. Can't prove it. Kalen's voice went deadly quiet. But he's dangerous, Kara. More cunning than his brother, and twice as ruthless. If he sees an opening to avenge Darken's death by targeting you, he'll take it, Kara finished. I understand. I need you to stay close to me tonight. No wandering off, no private conversations with anyone I haven't cleared. His grip tightened. Rawl plays long games. He'll smile and offer congratulations while planning your murder. The casual way he said it should have terrified her. Instead, it steadied something in her chest. This was the reality of the world she'd chosen, a world where politics and violence intertwined, where enemies smiled with knives hidden behind their backs. She'd been naive to think she could navigate it without blood. I'll be careful, she promised. A knock on the door interrupted them. Zed entered without waiting for permission, his expression grim. We have a problem, he announced. Council Elder Thorne just arrived. With Shota. Kalen went very still. Shota is here? Personally? Standing in the main hall, looking like she wants to set something on fire. Zed's gaze flicked to Kara. She's demanding to speak with you both. Now. Kara looked between them. Who's Shota? Trouble, Kalen said flatly. The worst kind. He stood, pulling Kara up with him. She's the council's enforcer. A witch who specializes in binding magic and pack law. If she's here, it means the council is taking this seriously. Seriously enough to do what? Force me to reject the mate bond. Kalen's voice was ice. Or kill you if I refuse. The words hit like a physical blow. They can do that? They can try. Kalen's hand went to her lower back, that possessive gesture she was beginning to recognize as instinctive. But they'll have to go through me first. They descended to the main hall, and Kara immediately understood why Zed had looked so concerned. Shota was nothing like Kara expected. She'd imagined someone old, weathered, traditionally witch-like. Instead, the woman waiting by the massive fireplace looked barely 30, with wild auburn hair and eyes that shifted colors in the firelight, green to gold to something almost red. She wore leather and silk in equal measure, and power radiated from her like heat from a flame. Council Elder Thorne stood beside her, looking smug and self-satisfied in his expensive suit. He was the one who'd orchestrated that meeting Kara had overheard, the one that had made her run. Kalen, Thorne greeted, his voice oily with false warmth. Thank you for seeing us. You didn't give me much choice. Kalen's tone was pure alpha command. Shota. It's been a long time. Not long enough. Shota's gaze fixed on Kara, and those color-shifting eyes narrowed. So this is the human causing all the chaos. Kara forced herself not to flinch under that inhuman stare. Kara Dennison. I'd say it's nice to meet you, but I have a feeling that would be a lie. Shota's lips curved. I like her. She's got spine. The smile vanished. Pity she's going to die. Careful, Kalen growled, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Oh, calm down, Alpha. Shota waved a dismissive hand. I'm not the one who wants her dead. Yet. I'm just here to explain the council's position. Which is? Kalen's voice was dangerously soft. Thorne stepped forward. The council has voted. Unanimously. You have until the summer solstice, 3 weeks, to end this. infatuation, and commit to the Westridge Alliance, or face formal challenge to your alpha status. The ultimatum hung in the air like a blade. They're going to strip your position, Kara breathed. Because of me. They're going to try, Kaelin corrected. And fail. Don't be so confident, Thorn said. We have precedent. An alpha who puts personal desire above pack welfare can be removed for dereliction of duty. The vote was 9-2, Kaelin. Even your allies on the council see the necessity. My allies see political pressure when it's applied, Kaelin shot back. This has nothing to do with pack welfare and everything to do with the council wanting to control who I mate with. Because your choice is disastrous. Thorn's composure cracked. A human mate? She can't strengthen alliances, can't produce strong heirs, can't even defend herself in a pack dispute. She's a liability wrapped in weakness. She's mine. The words came out as a wolf's growl. And I don't negotiate over what's mine. Shota had been watching the exchange with unsettling intensity. Now she moved closer to Kara, circling her like a predator assessing prey. Kara fought the urge to retreat. Interesting, Shota murmured. The bond is there. I can feel it, his wolf has marked you, even if you can't sense it. It's genuine. Not political manipulation or strategic posturing. She tilted her head. That actually makes this worse. How? Kara asked. Because if it was fake, we could break it easily. But a true mate bond, even one-sided. Shota's eyes flashed red. That requires blood magic. Pain. Sacrifice. Kaelin would have to willingly sever the connection, and it would likely drive his wolf mad in the process. Then it's impossible, Kaelin said flatly. I won't do it. Then you lose your territory. Your pack. Everything you've built. Thorn's smile was cruel. The council has already identified your replacement. Richard Cypher has agreed to assume alpha status when you're removed. The name hit like a gut punch. Kara knew Richard, young, ambitious, popular with the younger wolves. He'd always been respectful to her, but she'd sensed the calculation beneath his friendly exterior. Richard doesn't have the strength to hold this territory, Kaelin said. He's too soft. Too willing to compromise. He's willing to mate with Nikki and secure the Westridge Alliance, Thorn countered. Which makes him more suitable than an alpha who's been compromised by human attachment. Enough. Shota's voice cut through the argument like a knife. Here's what's actually going to happen. The council wants this alliance. Needs it, if we're being honest. The supernatural world is changing, human governments are getting suspicious, hunters are organizing, and we need unified pack territories to survive what's coming. She fixed Kaelin with a stare that made even the alpha pause. You're one of the strongest alphas we've had in generations, Shota continued. Your territory is stable, profitable, and feared by our enemies. The council doesn't actually want to replace you. It would be messy and potentially destabilize the region. Her gaze slid to Kara. But they will, if you force their hand. What are you proposing? Kaelin's voice was wary. A test. Shota's smile was sharp as broken glass. Let Kara prove she's worthy. 3 trials over the next 3 weeks. Pass all 3, and the council will accept her as your mate. Fail even one, and you choose the Westridge Alliance. What kind of trials? Kara heard herself ask. The kind that will either prove you're strong enough to survive in our world, Shota's eyes gleamed, or kill you trying. Horror washed through Kara. You're asking me to risk my life to prove I deserve to be with him. I'm giving you a chance most humans would never get, Shota corrected. The council wanted me to simply bind Kaelin's wolf and force the rejection. This way, at least you have agency. At least you can fight for what you want. It's a trap, Kaelin said flatly. You'll design trials she can't possibly pass. The trials will be difficult but achievable, Shota interrupted. I have no personal stake in your romantic drama, Alpha. I'm offering a genuine compromise. Either she proves herself, or you accept that the council's authority supersedes your personal desires. Thorn looked like he wanted to protest, but Shota silenced him with a glance. 3 trials, Shota repeated. First one is tomorrow night, during your pack meeting. Trial by fire, metaphorically speaking. She faces the pack's judgment, answers their challenges, and proves she understands what it means to be an alpha's mate. And the other 2 trials? Kara asked, her voice steadier than she felt. You'll learn about them when you survive the first. Shota's smile was almost sympathetic. If you survive. She's not doing this, Kaylin said. I won't risk her life over council politics. Then you lose everything. Thorn's voice stripped satisfaction. The pack, the territory, your alpha status. All of it. Is that what you want? Kaylin looked like he wanted to tear Thorn's throat out. I'll do it, Kara said quietly. Every head swiveled toward her. Kara, no, Kaylin started. Yes. She met his gaze, saw the fear and fury there. I'm not letting you sacrifice everything you've built because the council is afraid of change. If proving myself means facing trials, then I face them. You could die. I could die crossing the street, Kara countered. I could die from a random vampire attack or a rogue wolf or any of the 1,000 dangers that come from living in this world. At least this way, I'm fighting for something that matters. She's braver than you give her credit for, Shota observed. I'm beginning to see why your wolf chose her. Kaylin looked torn between pride and terror. His hand found Kara's, gripping tight enough to hurt. If she's harmed, he said to Shota, his voice dropping to something barely human, if these trials are rigged or designed to kill her, I will burn the council to ash and salt the earth where they stood. Is that clear? Crystal. Shota didn't look intimidated. But understand this, Alpha, if she fails, you honor the agreement. You mate with Nikki, secure the alliance, and let Kara go. No revenge plots. No undermining the council's authority. You accept their judgment. The words cost him. Kara could see it in the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his wolf prowled just beneath his skin. Fine, Kaylin bit out. But I'm there for every trial. I watch. I intervene if things go too far. You watch, Shota agreed. But you don't intervene. These are her trials, not yours. She succeeds or fails on her own merit. Thorn was practically vibrating with suppressed glee. This is acceptable to the council. The first trial begins tomorrow night at the pack meeting. I suggest you both prepare. He turned to leave, Shota following in his wake like a deadly shadow. At the door, Shota paused and looked back at Kara. For what it's worth, human, I hope you survive. The supernatural world could use more females who refuse to back down. Her smile was enigmatic. Just remember, strength isn't always about power. Sometimes it's about knowing when to bend so you don't break. Then they were gone, leaving Kara and Kaylin alone in the suddenly silent hall. I can't believe you agreed to this, Kaylin said, his voice raw. I can't believe you thought I wouldn't. Kara turned to face him fully. You were willing to lose everything for me. The least I can do is fight to prove I'm worth it. You're worth it, he said fiercely. You don't have to prove anything. Yes, I do. Kara reached up, cupping his face. Not to you. To them. To the pack, to the council, to every wolf who thinks humans are too weak to survive in your world. Her jaw set. I'm going to pass these trials, Kaylin. All 3 of them. And when I do, they'll have to accept that love doesn't give a damn about politics or pack law. Kaylin pulled her against him, his arms banding around her like he could shield her from what was coming through sheer will. I'm going to train you, he said into her hair. Starting now. Every spare moment until tomorrow night. Combat strategy, pack protocol, everything you need to survive. I thought you said you were a terrible teacher. I'm motivated now. His grip tightened. And Kara? If at any point the trials become too dangerous, if I think you're going to die, I don't care what agreement I made. I'm pulling you out. Even if it costs you everything? You are everything, he repeated, echoing his earlier words. The rest is just noise. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other while the weight of tomorrow pressed down on them both. Somewhere in the pack house, wolves were gathering. Word of the trials would spread fast. By tonight, the entire territory would know that their alpha's human mate had to prove her worth or die trying. Kara should be terrified. Should be running for the nearest exit. Instead, she felt something fierce and determined settling in her chest. She'd spent 2 years proving herself in a world that didn't want her. She could do it again. Only this time, she had something the council hadn't counted on. She had an alpha who believed in her. A wolf who'd chosen her over power, over politics, over everything. And she'd be damned if she let him down. "All right," Kara said, pulling back to meet his eyes. "Teach me how to be strong enough to stand beside you. Show me how to survive in your world." Kalen's smile was fierce and proud and absolutely feral. "With pleasure." The rest of the day passed in a brutal haze of preparation. Kalen had called in Zed, and together they'd put Kara through a crash course in pack politics, hierarchy, and protocol. She learned the formal titles, the power structures, the subtle ways wolves communicated dominance and submission through posture and scent. "Never lower your eyes first," Zed instructed. "Not unless you're acknowledging someone as your superior. You're the alpha's mate. That puts you second only to Kalen himself in pack hierarchy." "But I'm human," Kara protested. "Doesn't that automatically make me?" "It makes you unusual," Zed interrupted. "Not inferior. The wolves who respect Kalen will respect his choice. The ones who don't." He shrugged. "Well, that's what the trials are for." They moved on to combat basics. Not that Kara would ever be a match for a werewolf in a physical fight, but Kalen insisted she learn defensive techniques anyway. "You're not trying to win," he explained, demonstrating a blocking move that sent her stumbling backward. "You're trying to survive long enough for help to arrive. Or for them to realize attacking you means answering to me." By the time the sun set, Kara's entire body ached and her mind felt stuffed with information. But she was as ready as she'd ever be. The emergency pack meeting was set for midnight, a wolf tradition for important gatherings, which gave Kara exactly 3 hours to shower, change, and mentally prepare for facing a room full of supernatural predators who thought she didn't belong. No pressure. She was standing in Kalen's bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror, when he appeared behind her. His hands settled on her shoulders, warm and solid. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. "We can leave. Tonight. I'll walk away from the territory, the pack, all of it. We can build a life somewhere else." Kara met his eyes in the mirror. "You'd really do that? Give up everything?" In a heartbeat. The simple honesty of it made her throat tight. But she shook her head. "No. We fight. We prove them wrong." She turned to face him. "Besides, I've seen your library. You have first editions in there that are practically priceless. I'm not letting you abandon those just because the council is full of stubborn wolves." His laugh was surprised and genuine. "Those books are your priority right now? Those books and the ridiculously comfortable couch and the fact that you secretly read terrible romance novels." Kara smiled. "This is your home, Kalen. Your territory. Your legacy. I'm not taking that from you. You're not taking anything. You're giving me everything I didn't know I needed." He kissed her softly. "But after tonight, after you pass this first trial, and you will pass it, I'm going to spend an entire day proving to you exactly how grateful I am." Heat coiled in Kara's stomach. "Is that a promise, Alpha?" His eyes flashed gold. "It's a guarantee." They might have gotten distracted then, but Zed's voice echoed up the stairs. "Kalen, the pack is gathering. And Denna's already starting trouble." The moment shattered. "Showtime," Kalen murmured. He took Kara's hand, threading their fingers together. "Stay close. Don't let them bait you into losing your temper. And remember, you're already stronger than they think." "I know." Kara squeezed his hand. Because I survived 2 years working for the most terrifying alpha in the Northern Territories. If I can handle you, I can handle anything. I'm not that terrifying, Kaylin protested. You made a council member wet himself once just by looking at him. He was embezzling pack funds. He deserved it. Kara laughed, and the sound helped ease the knot of tension in her chest. Together, they descended to the main hall where the pack waited. And as the doors opened to reveal hundreds of wolves gathered in judgment, Kara lifted her chin and prepared to fight for the life she'd chosen. The first trial was about to begin. The main hall had been transformed. What was normally a functional meeting space now resembled an ancient throne room. Torches lined the walls despite the electric lights, casting dancing shadows that made the gathered wolves look even more predatory. The pack had arranged themselves in a semicircle, over 200 wolves, their eyes glowing faintly in the firelight as they watched Kara and Kaylin enter. At the center of the room sat Kaylin's chair, a massive thing carved from dark wood, more throne than furniture. It was a symbol of his authority, his absolute rule over the Northern Territories. Tonight, that authority would be tested. Kara felt the weight of hundreds of stares as Kaylin led her to the front of the room. Some gazes were curious, others hostile. A few held something that might have been sympathy, as if they already knew she was doomed. Zed stood to the right of the throne, his weathered face carefully neutral. But Kara caught the slight nod he gave her, encouragement, or maybe just acknowledgement that she'd shown up. Denna stood to the left, and the naked hostility in her expression made Kara's stomach clench. The female wolf was dressed for war in leather and steel, her dark hair braided back from a face that could have been beautiful if it wasn't twisted with contempt. And there, near the back of the crowd, stood a man Kara had never seen before. Tall, with sharp features and eyes like chips of ice. His smile was pleasant, friendly even, but something about him made her skin crawl. Rawl, Kaylin murmured, following her gaze. Remember what I told you? Kara nodded, tearing her eyes away from the Eastern Territories alpha. Kaylin took his seat, and the casual power in the gesture made the entire room settle into attentive silence. He didn't shout for order. Didn't demand attention. He simply was, and the pack responded like iron to a magnet. Thank you for gathering on short notice, Kaylin began, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. I've called this emergency meeting to address rumors that have been circulating. To set the record straight before misinformation spreads. He paused, letting the tension build. This morning, I formally refused the Westridge Pack Alliance. His words landed like stones in still water. I have also claimed Kara Dennison as my mate, and I will not entertain challenges to that decision. The hall erupted. Wolves snarled and argued, voices rising in a cacophony of shock and anger. Some looked betrayed, others confused. A few, very few, looked supportive. Kaylin let the chaos continue for exactly 30 seconds. Then his power rolled out like a physical force, pressing down on every wolf in the room until they fell silent, some literally dropping to their knees under the weight of his alpha command. I understand this is unexpected, Kaylin continued, as if he hadn't just forced his entire pack into submission. I understand it raises questions about pack security, political alliances, and the future of our territory. Which is why I'm giving you this opportunity to voice those concerns. Respectfully. He gestured to Kara, and she forced herself to step forward. To stand beside his throne where everyone could see her. Where she was exposed and vulnerable and utterly at their mercy. The council has set 3 trials, Kaylin announced. If Kara passes all 3, they will accept her as my mate and the pack's second. Tonight is the first trial by judgment. She will face your questions, your challenges, and prove she understands what it means to stand beside an alpha. His eyes swept the room, daring anyone to object. Who speaks first? For a moment, no one moved. Then Denna stepped forward, and Kara's heart sank. I'll speak, Denna said, her voice sharp as a blade. Since no one else seems willing to state the obvious. She turned to face Kara directly, and the contempt in her expression was like a physical slap. "You're human," Denna began, each word precise and cutting. "You have no pack blood, no supernatural strength, no ability to defend yourself against even the weakest wolf in this room. You can't feel the mate bond that supposedly justifies this insanity. You have no political connections, no territory to bring to this union, no heirs to strengthen our bloodline." She moved closer, circling Kara like prey. "So tell me, human, what exactly do you bring to this pack besides weakness? Why should we accept you as our alpha's mate when you're nothing but a liability? A target for our enemies? A fragile thing that will break the first time a real threat emerges?" The questions hung in the air like knives. Kara felt her pulse hammering, her mouth dry. This was it, the first real test. She could feel Kalen's tension, his wolf straining to defend her. But he'd promised not to interfere. This was her fight. Kara took a breath and met Denna's hostile gaze without flinching. "You're right," she said, and the admission clearly surprised the other woman. "I am human. I can't shift, can't fight a werewolf hand-to-hand, can't sense pack bonds or territorial markers. By every traditional measure, I'm the worst possible choice for an alpha's mate." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Denna's smile sharpened, sensing victory. "But here's what I can do," Kara continued, her voice growing stronger. "I speak 4 languages fluently. I've negotiated treaties with 6 different pack territories, securing trade agreements and safe passage rights that have made this pack wealthy. I mediated the dispute with the Vancouver vampires that would have escalated into open war. I established the Human Liaison Program that's improved relations with local law enforcement and prevented 3 separate supernatural exposure incidents." She took a step forward, and Denna actually stepped back. "I've sat in council meetings where wolves twice my size tried to intimidate me into silence, and I didn't break. I've worked 18-hour days to prove I belonged in a world that wanted me dead. I've earned the respect of alphas who've never respected humans before, not through strength or power, but through intelligence, determination, and refusing to quit even when everything in me screamed to run." Kara's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "You ask what I bring to this pack? I bring 2 years of service. I bring connections in the human world that could save lives if hunters ever organize against us. I bring perspective from outside your hierarchy, someone who can see solutions you might miss, because you're too close to pack politics." She met Denna's eyes. "And I bring something your alpha apparently values, the ability to challenge him, to question his decisions, to be his partner instead of his subordinate." "Pretty words," Denna sneered. "But words don't stop enemies. Words don't protect the pack when war comes." "No," Kara agreed. "But intelligence does. Strategy does. Knowing when to fight and when to negotiate does." She raised her voice so the entire hall could hear. "You want a strong alpha's mate? Someone who can protect the pack? Then maybe it's time to redefine what strength means. Maybe strength isn't just about claws and fangs. Maybe it's about having the courage to stand in front of 200 predators and defend your right to exist." The hall had gone silent. Wolves were exchanging glances, some thoughtful, others still hostile. Then a voice came from the back, smooth, cultured, dangerous. "Fascinating speech," Rawl said, moving through the crowd with predatory grace. "You almost sound convinced of your own rhetoric." He stopped a few feet from Kara, and up close, he was even more unsettling. There was something cold in his eyes, something calculating that reminded her of a snake deciding when to strike. "I'm Rawl," he introduced himself with a slight bow. "Alpha of the Eastern Territories. And I must say, I'm intrigued by your unique situation." "Rawl." Kalen's voice carried a warning. "This is pack business. You're here as a guest." "A guest with a vested interest," Rawl interrupted smoothly. "After all, Decisions that affect the Northern Territory's political alliances affect all neighboring packs. His smile was pleasant and absolutely didn't reach his eyes. I simply want to understand what we're all committing to. He turned his full attention back to Kara. You mentioned my late brother, Rawl said conversationally. Darken. The Vancouver summit. I believe you said you had an unpleasant encounter with him. Kara's blood ran cold. I did. And 3 days later, my brother was found dead. Throat torn out. The council ruled it a territorial dispute, but there were never any witnesses. No evidence of who killed him. Rawl's head tilted. Curious, don't you think? The implication was clear. He knew. Maybe couldn't prove it, but he knew Kaelin had killed Darken. I think your brother was a predator who didn't understand boundaries, Kara said carefully. I think his death was unfortunate, but not surprising given his reputation. Diplomatic, Rawl murmured. Very diplomatic. But here's my question, Miss Dennison, if you're truly going to be an alpha's mate, you need to understand the consequences of that position. The enemies it creates. The targets it paints on your back. He moved closer, and Kara fought every instinct that screamed at her to retreat. My brother died protecting what he saw as his territory, his rights, Rawl continued. Some might say he died because an overprotective alpha couldn't control his wolf around a human female. What do you think happens to that human female when the dead alpha's family seeks justice? The threat was unmistakable. Kaelin started to rise, but Kara spoke first. I think, she said, her voice cutting through the tension, that Alpha Darken Rawl died because he assaulted someone under another alpha's protection. I think he ignored every territorial law and pack protocol when he put his hands on me without permission. And I think his death was the natural consequence of his own arrogance. She met Rawl's cold gaze without wavering. As for justice, if you want to avenge your brother's death, you'll have to prove Kaelin killed him. Which means admitting Darken violated pack law first. So either you challenge Kaelin directly for vengeance and risk exposing your brother's crimes, or you accept that he died by his own poor judgment. Rawl's smile froze. For a moment, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Bold, he said softly. Stupid, but bold. You do realize you just admitted you know who killed my brother. I admitted nothing. I stated facts about pack law and territorial rights. Kara's heart was hammering, but she kept her voice level. If you want to interpret that as a confession, you're welcome to take it to the council. I'm sure they'd be fascinated to hear how Darken Rawl's behavior at the Vancouver summit led to his convenient death. The standoff stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. Then Rawl laughed, a genuine sound that somehow made him more dangerous, not less. I see why Kaelin's wolf chose you, he said, stepping back. You've got teeth, even without the fangs. His expression hardened. But understand this, little human, my brother's death created a debt. And debts in our world are always paid. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But eventually. Is that a threat? Kaelin's voice was pure alpha command, and several wolves whimpered at the force of it. It's a statement of fact, Rawl replied calmly. I harbor no immediate hostility. I'm simply clarifying the reality of your mate's position. He turned back to Kara. You want to survive in our world? Then understand that every action has consequences. Every choice creates ripples. And sometimes those ripples become tidal waves. He melted back into the crowd, leaving a wake of tension behind him. Kara realized she was shaking. Not from fear, well, not entirely from fear, but from the adrenaline of facing down 2 direct challenges and somehow surviving both. Anyone else? Kaelin asked, his voice dangerously soft. Anyone else want to question my mate's worthiness? A hand rose near the middle of the crowd, a young wolf Kara recognized as one of the junior patrol members. I have a question, he said, his voice respectful but firm. Not a challenge, just something I need to understand. Kaelin nodded for him to continue. We've all heard the stories, the young wolf said. How you stayed late helping with paperwork. How you mediated disputes between wolves who wanted to tear each other apart. How you fought for better conditions for the Omegas, even though it pissed off the elders. He looked at Kara directly. You did all that knowing you'd never get recognition. Knowing you'd always be seen as less than. Why? The question caught Kara off guard. Of all the challenges she'd expected, genuine curiosity hadn't been one of them. Because it was the right thing to do, she answered simply. Because just because I'm human doesn't mean I don't care about justice, about fairness, about making things better. She paused. And because this pack gave me a chance when I had nowhere else to go. I owed you my best effort, even if you never acknowledged it. The young wolf nodded slowly. Then, to everyone's surprise, he dropped to one knee. Then you have my support, he said. If you fought for us when you were nobody, you've earned the right to stand beside our alpha. One by one, other wolves began to kneel. Not all of them, maybe a third of the room. But enough that Kara felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. Denna looked furious. This is madness. You're all accepting this based on sentiment and pretty speeches. We're accepting it because she's proven herself, Zed interrupted, his gravelly voice carrying authority. Not in one dramatic moment, but through years of consistent service. Through choosing to stay when she could have left. Through fighting for this pack when she had nothing to gain. He fixed Denna with a hard stare. What have you done lately besides complain about political strategy? Denna's face flushed with rage, but she didn't have a response. Kalen rose from his throne, and the hall fell silent again. The first trial required Kara to face the pack's judgment, he said. To answer your questions and challenges. To prove she understands what it means to be an alpha's mate. His gaze swept the room. I believe she's done exactly that. He turned to where Shota had been standing in the shadows, watching the entire proceeding with those unsettling color-shifting eyes. What says the council's representative? Kalen asked. Has she passed the first trial? Shota stepped forward, and Kara's stomach clenched. Everything depended on this moment. The witch studied Kara with unnerving intensity, as if seeing past flesh and bone to something deeper. When she finally spoke, her voice carried through the hall like smoke. She has answered challenges with intelligence, faced threats with courage, acknowledged her weaknesses while defending her strengths. Shota's lips curved into something that might have been approval. And she's managed to earn the respect of wolves who've never respected humans before. She paused, letting the tension build. The first trial is passed. Relief crashed through Kara so hard her knees nearly buckled. Kalen was beside her instantly, his hand at her back, steadying her. However, Shota continued, and Kara's relief froze. Passing one trial means nothing if you fail the next two. And I promise you, human, the challenges ahead will make tonight's questioning look like a pleasant conversation. What's the second trial? Kara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Trial by fire, Shota said, and her smile was sharp as broken glass. Literal fire. In 3 days, you'll enter the gauntlet, a path through flame and fear designed to test a wolf's courage and pain tolerance. Humans who've attempted it don't usually survive. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Even some of the wolves who'd supported Kara looked horrified. That's a death sentence, Zed protested. The gauntlet burns at temperatures hot enough to sear fur. A human skin will burn much faster, Shota finished calmly. Which is why she'll need to be fast, smart, and very, very lucky. She fixed Kara with those inhuman eyes. You have 3 days to prepare. I suggest you use them wisely. And if she refuses? Kalen's voice was barely controlled fury. Then she forfeits all 3 trials. The council's ultimatum stands. Shota's expression was almost sympathetic. You mate with Nikki, secure the alliance, or lose your alpha status. Those are the only options. She turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, human. The gauntlet doesn't just test physical courage. It shows you your deepest fears, your worst memories. It breaks people from the inside out. Her voice softened slightly. Many who survive the flames don't survive what the flames show them. Then she was gone, leaving behind a hall full of stunned, whispering wolves. Kara felt numb. Trial by fire. The gauntlet. 3 days to prepare for something that killed most people who attempted it. No, Kaylin said flatly. Absolutely not. We're not doing this. We don't have a choice. I will not watch you burn to death in some sadistic council test. His control shattered, power rolling off him in waves. I'll walk away from the territory first. I'll reject the alpha status, abandon the pack, whatever it takes. Kaylin. Kara grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. I'm not quitting. Not after getting this far. Not when wolves are starting to believe in us. You could die. I could also win. She pressed her forehead against his. 3 days. You said you'd train me. So train me. Teach me everything you know about surviving pain, about pushing past fear. Help me be strong enough to walk through fire. Kara. I love you, she said, and the words felt like both a confession and a promise. I love you enough to risk everything. To walk through literal flames if it means we get to be together. So please don't give up on me now. Kaylin's eyes had gone full wolf, gold and wild and desperate. When he kissed her, it tasted like fear and fury and something that might have been grief for what he knew was coming. 3 days, he said against her mouth. 3 days to make you ready for hell. Around them, the pack watched in stunned silence as their unshakable alpha held his human mate like she was the only thing anchoring him to sanity. And in the shadows at the back of the hall, Rawl smiled. Because everything was going exactly according to plan. The human would enter the gauntlet. She would likely die. And when she did, Kaylin Amnal would break. Broken alphas made mistakes. Created openings. Became vulnerable. And Rawl had been very patient in waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Darken's death would be avenged. The Northern Territories would fall. All because an alpha had been foolish enough to love something that could burn. The next 3 days were hell. Kaylin drove Kara relentlessly, pushing her body past every limit she thought she had. They started before dawn and didn't stop until she collapsed from exhaustion. Pain tolerance training. Meditation techniques. Breathing exercises designed to help her stay conscious when her nerves screamed for mercy. The gauntlet isn't just about surviving fire, Kaylin explained on the second day, his voice rough from lack of sleep. It's about surviving what the fire shows you. Your worst fears made manifest. How do I prepare for that? Kara asked, wincing as he wrapped her blistered hands. She'd been holding heated stones for hours, building tolerance. You can't. You just have to remember what's real and what's illusion. His jaw clenched. And you have to want to survive more than you want the pain to stop. But it wasn't enough. They both knew it wasn't enough. On the morning of the 3rd day, Kara woke to find Kaylin gone. A note on his pillow said simply, "Trust me." She found him in his study, arguing violently with Zed. "It's too dangerous," Zed was saying. "If the council finds out." "I don't care." Kaylin's eyes blazed gold. "I'm not sending her into that fire without every possible advantage." "What's going on?" Kara asked from the doorway. Both men turned. Kaylin's expression was a mixture of determination and guilt. "There's a way to help you survive the gauntlet," he said slowly. "But it requires blood magic. My blood, specifically. It won't make you fireproof, but it will give you some protection. Enough that you might," his voice cracked, "might survive." Blood magic. Kara's stomach twisted. "Is that even allowed?" "The council forbids it," Zed said flatly. "If they discover Kaylin gave you supernatural assistance, they'll disqualify you immediately. You'll fail all 3 trials by default." "But if I don't do it, she dies," Kaylin snarled. "That's not a choice." Kara looked between them, her heart racing. "How does it work?" "You drink my blood." It creates a temporary bond, not a mate bond, just a connection that gives you a fraction of my healing ability. Enough to survive burns that would kill a normal human. Kaylin moved closer. But Kara, if anyone discovers what we did, then we make sure no one discovers it. Kara's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Do it. Are you sure? Zed asked. Drinking alpha blood has side effects. Heightened senses. Aggression. And if you fail the trial anyway. I won't fail. Kara met Kaylin's desperate gaze. We've come too far to quit now. The ritual was quick and brutal. Kaylin's blood tasted like copper and smoke, and something wild that made Kara's entire body convulse. Power flooded through her veins, foreign and overwhelming and wrong, but also intoxicating. When it was done, she felt different. Stronger. Like her skin was too tight for her body. It'll fade after the trial, Kaylin said, steadying her. But for the next few hours, you'll have just enough supernatural resilience to survive. Thank you, Kara whispered. His expression was tortured. Don't thank me. If this goes wrong, if you die because I wasn't strong enough to protect you, then you'll honor the agreement. You'll secure the alliance. You'll lead the pack. Kara cupped his face. Promise me. Kara, promise me you won't destroy yourself if I fail. Promise me you'll keep fighting. The words cost her everything to say. But she needed to know he'd survive, even if she didn't. Kaylin pulled her into a crushing embrace. I promise, he lied. Because they both knew that if she died in the gauntlet, nothing would stop his wolf from tearing the world apart in grief. The gauntlet was held in the ancient arena beneath the pack house, a circular stone chamber lined with torches that burned with supernatural blue flame. The entire pack had gathered to witness, their faces grim and expectant. Shoda stood at the entrance, her color-shifting eyes gleaming with anticipation. The rules are simple, she announced. Walk the circle. Survive the fire. Reach the other side. She smiled. The flames will show you your fears. Resist them and you live. Succumb and you burn. Kara's heart hammered against her ribs. The heat was already overwhelming, and she hadn't even entered yet. Kaylin gripped her shoulders. Listen to me. Whatever you see in there, it's not real. I'm here. I'm real. Focus on my voice and keep moving forward. I love you, Kara said. I love you more than life. He kissed her desperately. Come back to me. Then she was walking toward the flames. The moment she crossed the threshold, agony exploded across her skin. The blood magic kept her from igniting immediately, but it couldn't stop the pain. She screamed, stumbling forward through walls of blue fire that reached for her like living things. Keep moving. Just keep moving. Then the vision started. She saw her father's car, lightning striking, his face through the window as he burned. She saw herself as a child, screaming for help that never came. The memory was so vivid, so real, that she almost stopped moving. Not real. It's not real. The scene shifted. Now she was in Kaylin's office, watching him sign the Westridge Alliance papers. Watching him turn to Nikki with cold, calculating eyes. Did you really think I loved you? Dream, Kaylin asked. You were always just leverage. A tool to be discarded. Kara's chest constricted. The pain of betrayal hurt worse than the flames. Lies. He loves you. He chose you. But the visions kept coming, each one more devastating than the last. She saw herself rejected by the pack, hunted through the streets by wolves who saw her as prey. She saw Kaylin killed defending her, his blood on her hands. She saw everything she feared most made manifest in fire and pain. And through it all, she kept walking. One step, then another, then another. Her skin was blistering despite the blood magic. Her lungs burned from breathing superheated air. Every instinct screamed at her to curl up and let the fire take her. But Kaylin's voice cut through the agony. Keep moving, Kara. You're almost there. She couldn't see him through the flames. Couldn't see anything but fire and fear. But she could hear him. Real. Solid. Hers. Kara took another step. And another. The exit was just ahead, a dark archway beyond the flames. 5 more steps. 4. 3. Then something grabbed her ankle. She looked down and saw Rawl emerging from the fire, his smile vicious. "My brother says hello," he hissed, and yanked her backward into the inferno. Kara screamed as flames engulfed her completely. The blood magic was failing, burning away. She could feel her skin charring, could smell her own flesh cooking. No, not real. Rawl isn't here. This is the gauntlet showing you fear. With the last of her strength, Kara kicked free and lunged for the exit. She burst through the archway and collapsed on cool stone, gasping and sobbing and alive. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Then Kalen was there, pulling her against him, his hands gentle on her burned skin. "You did it," he breathed. "You survived." Kara looked up at Shota through tear-blurred eyes. The witch was staring at her with something that might have been respect. "The second trial is past," Shota announced. "Though I don't know how you survived. No human should have lasted that long." Kara's blood went cold. Did she know about the blood magic? But Shota just smiled enigmatically and turned away. "One trial remains," she called over her shoulder. "Prepare yourself, human. The worst is yet to come." Kara spent the next 2 days in bed, recovering from burns that should have killed her. The blood magic had saved her life, but it had cost more than she'd expected. Her senses were still heightened, making every sound too loud, every touch too sharp. And beneath it all, she could feel Kalen's wolf, a phantom presence at the edge of her consciousness that shouldn't have been possible. "The bond is strengthening," Zed said quietly, checking her bandages. The blood magic created a temporary connection, but surviving the gauntlet with his blood in your system. He shook his head. "You're changing. Becoming something neither human nor wolf. Is that permanent?" Kara asked, her voice hoarse. "I don't know. This has never been done before." Zed's expression was troubled. "But Kara, if the council discovers what Kalen did, they'll execute you both." She knew. The weight of that knowledge sat heavy in her chest. Kalen hadn't left her side except when Zed forced him to eat or shower. He looked haggard, his control fraying at the edges. Watching her burn had broken something in him. "I can't do it again," he said on the second night, his voice raw. "I can't watch you walk into another trial knowing you might not come back." "You won't have to watch." Kara reached for his hand. "Because I'm going to pass. You don't know what the third trial is. I know it won't be worse than fire." She tried to smile. What could be worse than burning alive? She found out the next morning. Shota arrived with her usual dramatic flair, accompanied by Council Elder Thorn and a woman Kara had never seen before, ancient, with silver hair and eyes that held centuries of knowledge. "This is Elder Cyrene," Shota introduced. "She'll be overseeing the final trial." Cyrene's gaze swept over Kara, seeing too much. "You survived the gauntlet," she said, her voice like wind through autumn leaves. "Impressive. Most humans would have died in the first 30 seconds. Most humans have more sense than to try," Kara managed. Cyrene's lips twitched. "Indeed. Which brings us to the third trial, trial by truth." Dread pulled in Kara's stomach. "What does that mean?" "It means you'll be placed under a truth spell," Cyrene explained. "And the council will ask you questions. You must answer honestly. Completely. No evasions, no half-truths. If you lie, even once, the spell will kill you." The room went silent. "That's insane," Kalen snarled. "You're basically demanding she expose every private thought." "We're demanding honesty," Thorn interrupted smugly. "If she's truly worthy of being an alpha's mate, she should have nothing to hide. Unless—" his smile sharpened. "Unless there are secrets that would prove she's unfit." Kara's mind raced. The blood magic. If they asked about the gauntlet, if they asked how she survived, she'd have to tell the truth. And Kaylin would be executed for helping her cheat. I won't do it, Kara said. Not if it puts Kaylin at risk. Then you forfeit the trials, Shota said quietly. And everything you've endured was for nothing. Better than betraying him. I'll take the spell too, Kaylin interrupted. Whatever questions you ask her, you ask me. We answer together, or not at all. Cyrene's eyebrows rose. An alpha volunteering for a truth spell? That's unprecedented. So is a human surviving the gauntlet, Kaylin shot back. If you want honesty, you'll get it. From both of us. Thorn looked like he wanted to protest, but Cyrene held up a hand. Very well. The trial will be held tomorrow at dawn. Both of you will answer. Her gaze sharpened. And both of you will face the consequences of whatever truths emerge. After they left, Kara turned to Kaylin in horror. What did you just do? They'll ask about the blood magic. And I'll tell them the truth. His jaw set. That I would burn the world down to keep you safe. That I'd break every council law if it meant you survived. That I regret nothing. They'll execute you. Then I'll die knowing I fought for what mattered. He pulled her close. I'm done playing by their rules, Kara. Done letting them control my life, my choices, my heart. Tomorrow, we tell the truth. All of it. And let them deal with the consequences. You're insane, Kara whispered. I'm in love. Kaylin's smile was fierce and reckless. Same thing. That night, they didn't sleep. Instead, they talked about everything they'd never said, every fear and hope and desperate dream. About the life they wanted to build if they survived. About the children they might have, human or wolf or something beautifully in between. About how loving each other had been worth every moment of hell. And when dawn came, they walked hand in hand into the council chamber, ready to face their final trial. Ready to burn their world down with truth. The council chamber was circular, lined with ancient stones that hummed with power. 7 council members sat in judgment, their faces carved from years of political maneuvering. Elder Cyrene stood at the center, her hands already glowing with silver light as she prepared the truth spell. Kara's heart hammered as she and Kaylin were positioned in the middle of the circle. Witnesses filled the gallery, pack members, visiting alphas, anyone with enough influence to demand entry. She spotted Denna watching with barely concealed satisfaction. Raul lurked in the shadows, his expression unreadable. The spell is simple, Cyrene announced. You cannot lie. You cannot evade. Every question must be answered fully and honestly, or the magic will stop your heart. Her ancient eyes held sympathy. I suggest you think carefully before speaking. She raised her hands, and silver light exploded through the chamber. It wrapped around Kara and Kaylin like chains, sinking into their skin until it burned. Kara gasped as the magic took hold, a pressure in her chest, a weight on her tongue. We'll start with the human, Thorn said, his smile vicious. Miss Dennison, did you receive any supernatural assistance in surviving the gauntlet? The truth spell pulled at Kara's throat, demanding answer. She could feel Kaylin tense beside her. This is it. The moment everything falls apart. Yes, Kara said, and the word felt like surrender. I drank Kaylin's blood before entering. It gave me temporary healing abilities. Shocked gasps rippled through the chamber. Several council members looked murderous. You cheated, Thorn said triumphantly. You broke the fundamental rule of the trials. The rule was that she couldn't receive help during the trial, Kaylin interrupted, his voice cutting through the chaos. The blood magic was administered before she entered. Nothing in the council's terms forbade preparation. That's a technicality. It's the law, Zed's voice rang out from the gallery. I reviewed the trial guidelines personally. Nothing prohibits pretrial enhancement, only direct intervention during the challenge itself. Cyrene studied them both, her expression thoughtful. The wolf is correct. While the blood magic was unorthodox, it doesn't technically violate trial law. She turned to Thorn. Continue your questioning, but be precise about what you're actually asking. Thorn's face flushed with rage, but he pressed on. Fine. Miss Dennison, why did you really come to work for the Northern Territories Pack? What were your true motivations? The truth spell pulled again, and Kara couldn't stop the words. I was running from a human organization that hunted supernatural creatures. They'd discovered I'd been helping werewolves escape their raids. They wanted me dead for treason against humanity. I came here because I had nowhere else to go. Her voice cracked. Because I believed in a world where humans and wolves could coexist, even if my own kind wanted me dead for it. The revelation hung in the air like smoke. She'd never told anyone, not even Kaylin, about her past. About the hunters she'd betrayed, the humans she'd turned her back on to save supernatural lives. Kaylin's hand found hers, squeezing gently. I've got you. Interesting, Thorn murmured. So you've been a traitor to your own species from the beginning. How do we know you're not a spy? A plant meant to infiltrate and weaken us from within. Because I love him, Kara said, and the truth spell made the words ring with absolute certainty. Because I would die before I let anyone harm this pack. Because for 2 years I've given everything to protect wolves who've never fully accepted me, and I'd do it again without hesitation. She turned to face the council directly. You want to know my truth? Here it is. I'm not perfect. I'm scared, broken, and completely out of my depth. I survived the gauntlet because Kaylin gave me his blood, yes, I admit it freely. But I also survived because I wanted to live. Because I wanted to prove that humans aren't just prey or problems. Because I love a wolf who chose me over power, and I'll be damned if I let politics destroy what we've built. The chamber was silent. Then Elder Cyrene spoke, her voice gentle. Alpha Kaylin. Your turn. Did you kill Dark and Rawl? Kaylin didn't hesitate. Yes. Gasps echoed through the room. Rawl straightened in the shadows, his expression turning predatory. Why? Cyrene asked. Because he put his hands on my mate without permission. Because he assaulted her at the Vancouver summit. Because he violated every territorial law and pack protocol, and killing him was the only language his wolf understood. Kaylin's eyes blazed gold. I'd do it again. Tomorrow. 1,000 times over. Anyone who touches what's mine answers to me personally. You admit to murder, Thorn said, barely containing his glee. Breaking the most fundamental law of pack justice. I admit to defending my mate, Kaylin corrected. Which is my right as Alpha. Darkin broke law first. I simply enforced consequences. That's not for you to decide. Then who decides? Kaylin's power rolled through the chamber, making several wolves whimper. The council? The same council that's been trying to control my mating choices for political gain? The same council that set death trials for a human woman to prove she's worthy of love. He turned to address the entire room. I've served this council for 15 years. I've expanded our territory, secured our borders, and made the Northern Pack the strongest in the region. I've negotiated treaties, ended wars, and protected our kind from exposure. And the moment I choose a mate who doesn't fit your political agenda, you threaten everything I've built. His voice dropped to something dangerous. So here's my truth, since we're being honest. I don't care about the Westridge Alliance. I don't care about council politics. I care about Kara. About building a life with someone who sees me as more than just an alpha to be manipulated. And if that makes me unfit to lead, then I choose her over the pack. Over the territory. Over everything. The declaration sent shockwaves through the chamber. You'd abandon your pack? One of the council members asked, horrified. I'd free them from a leadership that puts politics over happiness, Kaylin countered. But I don't think it'll come to that. Because I believe my pack is smarter than the council gives them credit for. He looked directly at the gallery where pack members watched. You've seen what Kara's done for us. the treaties she's negotiated, the lives she's saved, the work she's put in without recognition or reward. So I'm asking you, all of you, is she really unworthy? Or is the council just afraid of what it means when an alpha chooses love over politics? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kara saw wolves exchanging glances, reconsidering. Then the young wolf who'd knelt at the first trial stood up. I support Alpha Kalen's choice, he announced. Kara Dennison has proven herself 100 times over. The council can do whatever they want. I stand with my alpha. Another wolf stood. Then another. Then dozens, until half the gallery was on their feet in support. Denna looked shocked. Thorn appeared furious. Even Rawl seemed surprised. Elder Cyrene watched it all with those ancient, knowing eyes. Enough, she said quietly, but her voice carried absolute authority. The chamber fell silent. I've heard enough truth for one day. She turned to the other council members. We have a decision to make. But before we vote, I want to add one final question. Her gaze fixed on Kara. If the council demands Kalen choose between you and his alpha status, what would you want him to do? The truth spell pulled, and Kara couldn't lie. I'd want him to choose the pack, she said, tears streaming down her face. I'd want him to lead, to protect his wolves, to be the alpha he was born to be. Even if it destroyed me. Even if it meant losing him forever. Because he's too important to too many people, and I love him too much to let him sacrifice everything for me. Kalen made a sound like he'd been struck. But, Kara continued, her voice strengthening, I'd also hope he'd find a way to change the system. To show the council that love doesn't make you weak, it makes you stronger. That choosing happiness doesn't mean abandoning duty. That maybe, just maybe, an alpha can have both. Cyrene smiled then, a real smile that transformed her ancient face. Thank you for your honesty. She released the truth spell, and the silver light dissolved. Council will deliberate. You'll have our decision within the hour. The hour that followed was the longest of Kara's life. She and Kalen waited in his quarters while the council deliberated. He held her like he'd never let go, his face buried in her hair, his whole body trembling with suppressed emotion. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I meant every word. You're worth more than any title. So are you, Kara whispered back. Promise me you'll keep fighting. Keep leading. Even if. Don't. He pulled back to look at her. Don't say goodbye yet. We're not done fighting. A knock interrupted them. Zed entered, his expression unreadable. The councils reached a verdict. Kara's stomach dropped. This was it. They returned to the chamber to find every council member seated, their faces grave. The gallery was packed, the entire pack had gathered to witness the outcome. Elder Cyrene stood, and the room fell silent. We've heard testimony under truth spell, she began. We've witnessed 3 trials completed. We've considered pack opinion and political implications. She paused. And we've reached a unanimous decision. Kara's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. The council finds that Kara Dennison has successfully completed all 3 trials. She's proven herself worthy of standing beside an alpha through intelligence, courage, and unwavering commitment. Relief crashed through Kara so hard her knees buckled. Kalen caught her, his own expression stunned. However, Cyrene continued, and the relief froze. We cannot ignore that Alpha Kalen used blood magic to assist her survival, regardless of technicalities. Such actions demonstrate a willingness to break rules when convenient. Therefore, we propose a compromise. Kara will be accepted as Kalen's mate, but the Westridge Alliance must still be honored, through different means. A trade agreement, mutual defense pact, and exchange of knowledge rather than a mating bond. Cyrene's gaze swept the room. Alpha Nikki has agreed to these revised terms. Thorn looked furious at being overruled, but he said nothing. Additionally, Cyrene added, we're establishing new protocols. Human-wolf bonding will be formally recognized under pack law. Trials will be reformed to prevent future death sentences disguised as tests. And the council will include at least one human representative to ensure balanced perspective. She looked directly at Kara. We'd like to nominate you for that position. If you're willing to continue fighting for the impossible. Kara couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Everything she'd wanted, acceptance, change, a future with Kaylin, was suddenly real. I accept, she managed. The chamber erupted in cheers. Pack members held their approval, the sound echoing off ancient stones until it became something primal and beautiful. Kaylin pulled Kara into his arms and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they finally broke apart, his eyes were wet. You did it, he breathed. You changed everything. We did it, Kara corrected. Together. The celebration lasted through the night. Wolves who doubted her came forward to offer respect. Even Denna approached, grudging admiration in her expression. You're tougher than you look, human, she said. Maybe you'll survive after all. It was probably the closest thing to a compliment Denna had ever given anyone. Only Rahl remained distant, watching from the shadows with that calculating smile. He approached as the party wound down, his expression pleasant and utterly cold. Congratulations, he said smoothly. You've won. For now. Is that a threat? Kara asked tiredly. It's a fact. My brother's death still requires justice. But I'm a patient wolf. His smile sharpened. Enjoy your victory, little human. You've earned it. He disappeared into the night, leaving a chill in his wake. He'll come for us eventually, Kara said quietly. Let him. Kaylin's arm tightened around her waist. We'll face him together. Like everything else. 3 months later, Kara stood in the council chambers wearing formal robes that still felt too big. She was the first human representative in supernatural history, mediating disputes and negotiating treaties with wolves who'd once seen her as prey. It was exhausting, terrifying, and absolutely perfect. Kaylin had never been prouder. His wolf had settled, content in a way he'd never been before. The Northern Territories thrived under their combined leadership, stronger for accepting change rather than fighting it. They'd made it officially under a full moon, the ceremony witnessed by both wolves and humans. Kara still couldn't feel the bond the way Kaylin did, but she felt something, a warmth in her chest, a sense of belonging that had nothing to do with magic and everything to do with choice. How does it feel? Zed asked one evening, finding her reviewing treaty documents in Kaylin's study. Being the human who changed everything? Kara smiled. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. But for the first time since her father's death, Kara didn't flinch. The storm couldn't touch her here. She had a pack, a mate, a purpose. She had fought through fire and fear and impossible trials. And she had won. Not because she was the strongest or the most powerful, but because she'd refused to give up. Because she'd proven that love was worth fighting for, that change was possible, and that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was choose happiness over safety. Kaylin found her there hours later, asleep over her paperwork. He carried her to bed, his touch gentle, his heart full. I love you, he whispered against her hair. In her sleep, Kara smiled. Because in a world of wolves and politics and ancient laws, they'd found something more powerful than any of it. They'd found each other. And that was worth burning the world down for. Hey there, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for joining us on Kara and Kaylin's incredible journey. If their story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from right now? What did you think of their trials? And what story should we tell next? Drop your suggestions below, and remember, love is always worth fighting for. Until next time, this is Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, reminding you that sometimes the impossible is just waiting for someone brave enough to try. See you in the next story.